I'm going to make some plum and walnut shortcrust tarts. A very simple recipe with only 3 main ingredients. First of all, you'll need some Jus-Rol ready rolled shortcrust sheet, some fresh plums, a few walnut pieces or walnut halves, some demerara sugar, and to give the pastry a nice glow, just a little beaten egg. Unroll the sheet and cut it with a sharp knife into 4 equal quarters, thus in half both ways. Then pop these pastry pieces onto a lined baking sheet. Now I'm using a lined baking sheet because as I've got to have sugar on this later on, if it bubbles over it might stick, and it just makes it a little easier to get the tarts off of the sheet. So first of all, you take a few lovely plums. They can be these nice sort of ready golden ones, or they can be the Victoria ones or the dark skinned ones, and cut them in half and then cut each half into 4 or 5 slices. Now this does depend a little bit on the size of the plums, and so therefore the number that you'll need will depend on the size of the plums. Right, that's probably enough plums. And then in addition I'm going to use some walnuts. Now obviously you can buy walnuts in walnut halves. They're always found in the home baking aisle, and indeed more often than not now at the end of the fresh vegetable aisle. But for this you don't need large half pieces, so use the sort of walnut pieces which are slightly cheaper, or buy walnut halves and then just crumble them up. And all you do is put the plum halves haphazardly onto the pieces of pastry, like this, leaving a good border, and I'll explain why you need the border in a moment. And this is going to make little tartlets, individual tartlets, without having to go to the trouble of lining or buying even in the first place tartlet tins. Just scatter over like that. And then I'll just bring this near to me. Now this is a little bit of beaten whole egg, or you can use water for this, or a little milk. And we need to use some moisture because you're going to pinch up the sides of the pastry to make the edges of the tartlet. So the moisture helps it stick together. So all you do is lift it up like this, very rustically, which is a favourite word at the moment in the cooking world, and form an edge, just like that. So it looks a little bit like a moccasin slipper, I think. So that's how you form up the tart. And then a final whiz around the edge. And again, this is optional, but this makes sure that the pastry sticks itself together. So you would do this with water if you didn't want to use the beaten egg. And as I'm using the beaten egg, we'll have a very shiny, nice golden outside to the pastry. Now this will cook at 200 degrees centigrade, or 180 if you have a fan assisted oven, gas mark 6. And just before I put it in the oven, I'm going to sprinkle with just a little demerara sugar. Again, if you don't have demerara, you can use caster sugar or granulated. And then when it comes out of the oven, just before serving, we will sprinkle it again. So now these are ready to go into the oven. And here are the plum and walnut tarts. Beautifully golden, and all you have to do now is sprinkle with just a little more demerara sugar.